Get out.
Sorry, man.
Get out!
Yo!
I really do not want to spoil this movie. I'm gonna try my best to not give away too much, but y'all know I had to do a review on this movie. I went and saw Get Out, which is a movie written and directed by Jordan Peele. And if you guys are familiar with who he is, he's an actor and comedian. He's most known for his show Key and Peele, which is like funny as hell. Now, after seeing this movie twice, I saw it once with a group of people and I went to see it again by myself, I just knew that I was gonna have to come on here and talk to you guys about this movie. When I first saw the preview of this movie, I was super skeptical. One, because I mean, it was a black guy. You know, black people aren't in scary movies, and definitely not the lead, and when they are, you know, they in like 2 seconds. And I was also skeptical because it said from the mind of Jordan Peele, who's known for, you know, for comedy. I saw that Cat movie and it was funny, but it was just like pure ridiculousness. So I was really curious about how he was gonna jump from comedy into like suspense, thriller, horror. And for anyone who knows me, like, I love scary movies. Like, horror, thriller, suspense is my favorite genre of movies. So I didn't really see the connection between him and this genre of movies, but I went to go and see it anyways. Now I'm gonna start by saying that this movie was both hilarious and terrifying. And it wasn't hilarious in the sense that I felt like I was watching a comedy. There was just a bit more comic relief than your average horror flick. And it wasn't terrifying in that it was scary. It was just, there were parts that make you jump, and this movie just made you feel so uneasy. Like, I was in that theater stressed out. Like, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. The emotions this movie brought out of me was just befuddling. Is befuddling a word? Befuddling? Whatever. But it is very clear that this movie is meant to be a thriller and not a comedy, and honestly, how this movie got made and passed through Hollywood, I have no idea. But I'm gonna break it down for you guys and tell you what I liked about it and what I didn't like. Now, the first thing that I liked about the movie is that it opened up playing Redbone by Childish Gambino. Like, I love that song. But the reason why I feel like this is important isn't just because, like, oh, I'm watching a movie with a song I like. No. There's a lot of movies with music I like. This song and this album in particular, like, it really gives you the feel of blackness. That sounds probably really weird for me to say. It sets the tone and it sets the vibe. The only reason I'm saying this is important is because the way he interacted with the other black people, I'm trying not to give away too much, but the way he interacted with the other black people in the movie, like, it just gives you a certain feeling, and when you watch this movie you'll know what I mean. I also liked the imagery, the cinematography. It was very well shot. The shot angles, the color palettes was really good. The way it was filmed, there was a lot of like symbolic shots within the movie. A lot of nods to like older horror flicks, which I thought was really cool. The performances were really good, especially Chris, the main character. His real name is Daniel, I don't know, I'm sorry. His performance was really good. Like, he really captured the feeling that I feel like most people, especially the black audience, I'm sorry I have to keep going back to black people, but I mean with this movie you kind of have to, but he really captured the same feeling that we were feeling. There were times in the movie where I was like, this bitch is crazy. No. And then he would literally be like, this bitch is crazy. You feel me? So he really captured the feel of how I feel like most people would react if they were in that situation. The best thing about this movie is the plot. It is the writing. Like, Jordan Peele nailed the fuck out of this movie. Like, he did such a good job. The way he wrote this and the way he went about it was very special. Like, I'm gonna go into that a little bit later, but the reason why I'm putting emphasis on the writing, when you watch scary movies, if you're someone who genuinely loves scary movies, you know that scary movies for the past like decade have been ass for the most part. That's partially because the writing is so trash. They think if enough stuff pops out at you and there's enough creepy sounds and the actors can look scared enough that it's a scary movie. And a lot of people buy into that shit, that like Paranormal Activity, cameras moving, doors shut. That shit is bullshit. It's not scary. The only good scary movie I've seen recently that like automatically pops up off the top of my head is Insidious, and ironically the producers from Insidious were on this movie too. The fact that the plot was so enticing is what helps make a scary movie scary, or at least entertaining. Running away from a dude with a knife and doors shutting by itself is not scary. The fact that you got comedians out here making better scary movies than scary movie people, yeah, step your game up. Now, the next thing that I absolutely loved was Lil Rel's character. Lil Rel is a comedian. His name in the movie was Rod, and what I loved about his character was he gave a voice to every black person who's ever watched a scary movie. Literally everything he was saying in the movie is what we say when we watch scary movies, and it was just refreshing to actually see a voice of reason in a scary movie, because you know, in scary movies everybody are like, they're all fucking idiots. And that's probably why black people are never in scary movies, or they kill us in like the first 2 minutes, because we don't put ourselves in these situations. We don't chase demons with video cameras. If we hear a creepy noise, we don't investigate. We don't buy dolls from the 1800s. We don't do that let's split up bullshit. And if we're running, we don't fall. Now, what I didn't like about this movie was I honestly can't think of anything I dislike about this movie. I'm not saying it's the perfect film or whatever, but I really don't have any complaints. Like, I think this movie was really well done. There are some things that were in the trailer and on the movie poster that weren't in the actual movie, or that didn't quite like connect. In the trailer there was like this deer skeleton thing like going rawr or whatever, and you didn't see that in the movie. Also, on the movie poster there's like a guy in like an old knight's helmet, and there's a point in the movie where you see that same helmet inside of the car. It didn't really make that much sense, but at the same time it wasn't relevant enough that it leaves you really baffled or confused. If you don't understand this movie, it's not going to be because of that 1 3-second clip in the trailer or that quick glance at that little knight thingy. So it's not like a huge deal, but you really don't want to see stuff in the trailer that's not actually in the movie itself. Now, something I find very annoying, and it isn't even with the movie itself, is with the people who've like reviewed this movie or reviewed the trailer or just making commentary about it, saying that this movie is race baiting and all that other stuff, and it's racist, and it's just bullshit. There's a difference between race baiting and calling out racism. Like, that, those two things are not synonymous. Like, if you need clarification, this movie was a psychological thriller that used horror and suspense to point out how racism still exists in a society that people are claiming as post-racial. Part of this movie's intent was to show passive racism as opposed to blatant racism. A lot of us who are sitting here saying that racism still exists, and you guys are arguing it with us because the KKK isn't I mean, they are around, but because people aren't getting lynched on, okay, they are getting lynched, shit. And this is why I think what he did was very unique and special, because the way Jordan Peele chose to point out racism was very clever, and it wasn't clever in a way that he was trying to be sneaky about it. He chose to point out passive racism as opposed to blatant racism, because when we see movies nowadays where racism is involved, it's very blatant, it's very in your face, and that's because in most cases movies with black people in it, especially with a black lead, is about slavery, or it's about the civil rights era. It's black people trying to overcome some huge thing because of their blackness. Even though that still exists, that's not our everyday. Blatant racism, for the most part, is not our everyday. We deal with a lot of passive racism, a lot of under the table, systematic, very coded language. That's the type of racism we deal with on a day-to-day. And let's be real, most of us would be a little taken aback if someone randomly on the street jumped into our face and called us a nigger. Like 20-30 years ago, that was the norm. And back then, black people, most of them wouldn't even think of reacting to the way that we react to blatant racism now. And what was so clever and accurate about it is the way that he wrote the white characters. And let's be real, if you watch King Peele, they know how to write white people. But he didn't write them as blatant racists. Like, you know, before, I'm not even gonna get into the plot twist, they weren't malicious. They didn't like imply black people were inferior to white people. They weren't saying, I don't want this black guy in my house or dating my daughter. If anything, they were just really ignorant. You know, they kept saying that black people have special capabilities and their genetic makeup makes them better at this and that. They were just saying a lot of ignorant shit. They were doing what a lot of white people do to black people. They always try to connect with us on a black level before they try to connect with us as just regular human beings, and sometimes it just goes too far. And so that's why a lot of people get so sensitive when we talk about racism, because they think we're automatically calling them a KKK member or Hitler, or think that they're trying to exterminate the black population. Like, no, you're just a little ignorant. Like, that's all we're saying. Just pull it back a little bit. So when we say this movie is about race and racism, it's not about it in the same way that we're used to seeing it on TV and in movies. There's certain things that were said in the movie and you're just like aha. Like, I don't want to give too much away, but there's like a point where he says it's a privilege to be able to experience another person's culture, when ironically okay, I don't want to spoil it, I don't want to give nothing away. There's another part where there's a party full of white people and the white guy says to Chris, black is in style. You know what I'm saying? He's like, black is what's popping right now. That's not what he said, but he said black is in style. At the extra poppin'. There's another point in the movie where Chris, the main guy, the black guy, says, why black people? And the guy responds, it's a white guy and he's blind, so I mean, he doesn't know Chris is black unless someone tells him he's black. So it's not like Peele was trying to portray white people as the white devil who are trying to single out black people. Well, I mean, in a sense they were, but again, plot twist. But anyway, to wrap this up, I really enjoyed this movie. I honestly might do a second video to kind of explain the actual movie, because this movie was super intricate. There were so many layers to it, and when reading comments and speaking to people about it, there was a lot of stuff that they didn't understand, a lot of metaphors they didn't understand that like really popped out to me. So I kind of want to like open up the discussion to talk about it, but that'll be for a later time. But I'm just gonna say I genuinely enjoyed this movie. I would encourage everyone to go and watch it, and I would rate this, I never know if it's supposed to be rating out of 5 or out of 10. Well, I rate it a 4 out of 5 or a 9 out of 10. Boom.